Welcome back. So today we're gonna tackle the driver's side of our 66 convertible with the support rail, heater channel repairs, corner or front quarter, wheel well, rear quarter panel. While we wait for our quarter panel skin for the passenger side. So I've got that other video for that. That's up too. And so you'll be able to watch both sides. This side's going to be pretty much the same, except for I don't think we're going to, well, we don't have the mess that we had with the quarter skin on the other side. It is rusted down here, so we will have to put a patch in here, do some work there. This side is much worse as far as rust goes in this area. The other side pretty much had the seam all the way good yet. The inner part of our heater channel is kind of gone here, so we're gonna have to do a lot more reconstruction on that. I'll probably end up cutting this through here. Strap up here to hold this. I've got it up. I've tightened up my gap a little bit like we do. Well, let's dig in. Our first order of business is to get this square tubing off the makeshift support rail. That they've got some beads of welds. What I'm going to do, like the other side, we're going to leave about probably this much of this initial outer rocker panel on, just because when we put everything together, that'll give us a base height here. We'll have a baseline, and it'll keep our running board holes located temporarily, so we can patch this one and redo the one over there by putting our running board on and getting our location of our holes. So that's the route we're going to go with that again. So when I cut this particular support off, I'm just going to come through here and come down and see what happens. I think there's a weld there. There might be one there too, and I know there's one there. But it's kind of the route we're going to go. Once again, we got our little helper Tom here. As soon as I get the air hose out though, he'll be gone. It's the one thing he don't like. All I gotta do is pick it up and there he goes. So I'm gonna take the cutoff wheel and let's see if I can cut that weld. I think on the other side I did a little bit of this and then I could get the sawzall in there to cut the rest of it, but we'll see. Okay, I know I've got an issue here, and being that this all welds to the rocker panel, I'm never going to get this out. This is messed up enough, this lip on the quarter. I'm going to come through and cut that off right there. That'll let us get inside to make this piece tie in to the heater channel So I'm going to get myself a pen and a ruler to draw myself a line. I can guarantee that if there's rust here, it's probably starting here. Actually, I can feel bubbles already. This bottom edge is going to be bad all along. You can see how this is pretty icky. Might even go up a little more. We'll see, especially on this side. But this seam where that goes on there, I'd have never got that off. We're going to cut this rocker just the way we did the other side, right straight through here, all along. And we can repair all that. Yeah, even the rocker here on the inside is pretty icky. We're gonna have to make I tell you, heater channel would be easier, maybe. Oh well. So I gotta go through. I'm gonna cut a good chunk of this out. Remnants of our original support rail are right here. I'll have to go on the inside and drill out all the spot welds on the reinforcement. They're all right here. We'll have to get the wire harness out of the way. Same with along here where this support panel welds to the support rail. So instead of boring you watching that, let me drill those out and start getting some of that clean, and then I'll come back and kind of show you how I'm breaking the spot welds free. And I'm hoping that the majority of our rocker is solid on the inside. If not, I might just say screw it and we might have to do the whole heater channel. We'll see. Alright, here we go again. You know me. I haven't tore any more off. This is bad. We're really bad up here. Inner part. I happen to have a Classic Fab heater channel here. That's the route we're going. It's going to be a better repair in the long run. You know, if I don't go with the whole heater channel, I'm going to have to pull this out. I'm going to have to weld pieces on here to get that back into shape. That's going to be very time consuming, and it isn't a perfect repair. I mean, it'll be good, but it'll be a much better repair just to put this whole heater channel in there. Sometimes we look at and we say, oh my God, I got to spend $200 for another patch panel. And that seems expensive, but then we got to remember that there's labor involved in making these repairs. The cost of this panel is going to be cheaper than my labor to try to fix all that. And then in the long run, we're going to have a better repair. So, bite the bullet. I've talked to Dave, and he's like, yep, do it. That's the route to go. So, I'm going to start drilling out. I'm going to try to find all my spot welds, because we got to keep this. We've got to keep this. But we'll get all of our spot welds. I'm going to end up setting the body back down on the chassis. I don't need it up in the air to make these, to take this stuff out anymore. That way the body's sitting where it is going to be sitting when it's done. When I do heater channels, you know, a lot of people say, oh, they'll cross brace this and make it. I don't do that. And you can call me crazy, whatever. Oh my goodness. Scared the heck out of me, the Sawzall. I hit the trigger. But what I do is my door. That has to fit. So I use the door to hold things in place. That's my preferred way of doing it. Everyone does it different. But if I have a cross brace in here holding this together, and I weld that heater channel in there, how do I know? I know the theory is the cross brace is going to hold it where it is, but I can't guarantee that. I want to see my door fit. Now I wouldn't even be against welding the door closed up here. I'm not going to do that, but that's a possibility. On these older cars with this type of door latch, it's not as nice either, because it doesn't hold it when you get with the pin that wraps around and it keeps this tight. But so that's my route, and I guess you'll see how I do it. It's up to you. I suppose you could put some type of cross brace on the inside and still have the door, but I don't know. I've done many of them where I haven't done that. On my wife's 67, her bug, this whole hinge area was gone, and I had to redo all that at the same time. So let's get tearing into this. This is turning into more than just a support rail replacement, it's a whole heater channel, which is kind of cool. It's a good project. And let me start drilling out some of these spot welds. And I'll do some cutting here. We got to free that up where this panel welds to the channel. That'll come out of there. So let me get some of those out, and then I can show you what I took out. And that'll help you have an idea of how that's all held together. If you've got a Beetle sedan, the concept is going to be the same. It just, you won't have to worry about preserving these extra reinforcements. So the process will be much easier for you, but it'll be the same. All right, back in a bit. All right, before I start drilling my spot welds out, I want to show you a little tip that can help. We've got to find our spot welds, and they're usually hidden under junk like this. So one of the tricks you can do is, you know about where they're going to be. And so I did it back here, is you take a piece of sandpaper And usually then your spot welds will show up. The front here, a little bit more crusty. So what I ended up doing is I took the grinding disc you can see that it's, because they're usually lower, so we're just trying, we don't want to grind obviously real hard because then we'll hide it, but that's kind of what we're looking to do here. You know, they're going to be along this edge. And these you can feel pretty good, at least on the other side they were pretty easy to find. There's going to be some there. There'll be some back up on top here. So I just wanted to show you that little tip before I start drilling them out, so you have a easier time finding them. That doesn't always work, but most of the time it does. Okay. Okay, got most of the spot welds drilled. So we got those along there. There's a whole crap load of them along that edge. I got what I could find here. I'm sure there's more. I wouldn't be able to get at one if there was down there. Up front, I couldn't necessarily find them through here, but I can feel them, but it's so thin, I think we're going to have to even patch some of this panel. So I'm kind of leaving that till I got as much as I could here, but this is all rotten through here. So those are probably just going to pop right off. So my next step, when I tear stuff apart, I usually take it apart piece by piece. You know, the chance of getting this whole channel out in one chunk are slim to none. So I'm going to start off by cutting this center section out of here, and then we'll work our back section off and the front section. So that's kind of where we're at. So I'm just going to basically sawzall this right through. So there's what it looks like inside of a heater channel. Your tube, the heat goes through your bottom. This is what's left of the support rail. So that would have come down and up like that. So now, we're going to start cutting and chopping is really what it's going to come down to. I'll probably end up cutting through here. It said piece at a time, especially if we're going to hit other spot welds, which I know I'm going to find spot welds that I missed or couldn't get to. It's easier to get the metal off if there's less there. You know, I want to take a guess and say that this is probably spot welded along there, but I don't know for sure if this is connected. But we're going to have to take and cut here and see if we can pop that loose. It's kind of a trial and error and try not to ruin what we want to keep. Now some people might ask the question, why don't I use like a plasma cutter? It makes, I don't want to say it makes a mess. what do I want to say? Well, it makes a rough edge, but I've got molten metal blowing everywhere, and I just don't like that. To me, it just, like, I don't know. I've tried it. I've got my laser that I can put the cutting tip on. That's much nicer than a plasma cutter. That's doesn't blow the stuff all over the place, but it'd be tough to get in some of these areas here. So I'm not going to set that up and use that. If I had like where it would have been really nice when I cut this, I could have taken and put a piece of metal on here and put the laser on here and went real quick, and it would have cut it. But that short little distance wasn't worth setting up the laser for. So let me keep hacking away at this, and I'll keep bringing you back as I do little pieces at a time to kind of show you where things are at. Okay. So let me show you kind of where I'm at here, a little update. One tool that I do use too is the air hammer, air chisel. But you got to be very careful. This can do a lot of damage to stuff you don't want it to. So what I initially did is I initially took this in that seam and I started pushing down. And there were a couple spot welds in here. Looks like there's one in there yet that I'll have to, right there. So like I said, you got to be careful. And I also did it along this edge. And then trying to rip this stuff apart along this edge without destroying that. I got one little piece in there that's still connected in that spot weld. I said I also took the Sawzall and cut myself right here to make it more manageable, get these pieces out of here, because I'm probably going to have to try to move that way with the pan in the way. But let's try to get this that one. Nice short little burst with this is the best. Is that? I can get at it from this hole here. I'm not sure if I'm cut all the way. Let's get a pry bar and see if I can pry this up a little bit. Hopefully, I got the other side kind of bolted in place yet, because I didn't want the body to shift around and get the alignment of those bolt holes off. So if I would have had those off and then put this new channel in and bolted it, that would have been a mess. So let's see. Yeah, we might be able to flex everything. Okay, so we're still connected somewhere. All right, I think where we're still connected is these spot welds. Yep, there's a spot weld right there. And what I missed drilling. There we go. That looks like there was a little spot there. A couple were up there. There's no way I would have got at them. But one little piece at a time. So now, start back here. I might just cut some of this because it's kind of rusty anyway. We're going to have to. If I went to replace the whole rocker panel, I would have had to remake some of this right here. And that would have been just a pain in the ass to try to cut this and weld the piece in there. So that's kind of why. So now we gotta break a bunch of that free. Some of this is going to get cut out. Let's see what we got back here. So those was my spot welds there, so I would assume there's got to be some here. I'm going to take the air hammer slowly and clean some of that out inside there. But you can kind of see how I'm taking little pieces out at a time. So let me finish this spot up and then we'll move over to the front. All right. Okay, I've got that all out of there. We'll be able to grind and clean up our edges. Laser clean it and prime it before we put our heater channel in. So now we can deal with the front here. All these spot welds hold this panel, this quarter, to the heater channel. Because the heater channels get replaced, and this is all rotten anyway, we're going to come and cut this through here. And I'll probably come straight down here. I don't have to mess with that angle because that should be solid right there. So I'm going to take the cutoff wheel for that. Your firewall runs through here, so when you get to those spots you don't want to go real deep and cut into that edge. See, here's that piece of the firewall. I think it comes something like this, and the other pieces here. So I don't want to mess that up. Somehow it's going to be spot welded to the heat channel. Somewhere we're going to have to break that out a little piece at a time. And then your front part of your firewall right here, that's all tied in also. So there's a lot of different stuff that ties in. So I'm going to keep chopping at this and I'll bring you back when I get a little bit further. But my guess is I'm going to end up cutting a center section out of here. So I got some room to work on these ends. And it looks like some mice were living in there. I disrupted their food's source. Storage. All right. Another quick little update here. Got the part of the rest of the heater tube piece out of there. Here's our heater vents. I want to save those, so I need to be careful. Our aftermarket heater channel has vents in it, but they don't look anywhere near the original. So what we'll end up doing is we're going to take those and we'll graft them into that new heater channel. But here's all the rust. I would have had nothing to hook the new bottom of the heater channel to through here, because that's all rotted. We would have had to try to remake some of that stuff, and that just would have been a mess. So I just wanted to show you that little spot there as I keep hacking away. It's out. What a pain in the butt. So here's our, if you got a sedan, this obviously is not here. It's going to be wide open inside. This is our firewall that comes along there, and the heater channel welds to that. Here's the outer part of the firewall. That's rusty. When I get the body off, I'll be able to make a new flat piece. The heater channel itself does not weld to it. Well, I shouldn't say that. The heater channel has a straight face here that just kind of stays inside there, but it does have a lip that comes down, and then that lip is where that face mounts on there. This convertible support piece is pretty rotten on the bottom, so I will end up probably cutting off a little bit of this bottom here and welding a new piece back on there. Okay, so what I had to do also though, here's our door. Nice big gap, but that'll be okay. We'll fix that. That'll come back together. That heater channel welds to this A-pillar, basically in a circle. And there's no way to weld that with this here. So what I did is I cut this, put a cut through here, and I removed this part of the support. Because we need to be able to weld that heater channel to this A-pillar here. And there's just no way of doing it with this panel on here. Now I didn't want to pull the whole darn panel off. That wouldn't have been worth it. So I thought, well, we'll put a cut through there. I bent this up out of the way so I can get in there and weld the channel on. And then we'll put this back on. We'll bend that back in place and put a nice bead of weld on there, and it'll be good. So if you've got a sedan, no need to worry. Convertible, you'll have to figure something out. Back here I think will be okay, because we can get at, there's only this spot right here, so I can get at all of that to weld that to the heater channel, so I didn't need to take any of that out of there. But the A-pillar definitely needs to be welded, otherwise it's your whole structure of your door hinge and everything. It affects all of that, this in and out and whatnot. So I got my heater vent out. It's savable. It's pretty rough on the bottom here. Hopefully I'll be able to real lightly, because I want to graft that into see here. So here's our new channel. There's the vents. They're not correct. So I will cut this out of here and put that in place so it looks right. So being a classic fab, I would have thought they would have done better with that. Unless there's a way I can... These back two could easily be cut and trimmed. And maybe I don't know, probably just as easy, we'll see. But that's what that is. So what I got to do now is start cleaning up all the rough edges, laser cleaning everything. We'll be able to laser clean all inside here, get that epoxy primered. I'll have to take this carpet track off of this one. That's for the sedans. The convertibles are different because they go along there and then they curl up here. So that isn't a big deal. I'll have to do some reconstruction here. This kind of got, it should be more of a edge here. I'll have to fix that up a little bit before the channel's there, so we got something to weld to. But that's it out. So I'm gonna start cleaning up all my edges, laser clean, get it primed up, and then I'll bring you back and we'll start fitting our pieces. Okay? Let's see if we can get this heater channel in here. It's going to be somewhat of a challenge just because we're on the chassis and try to get it up in there and whatnot. But let's see. Plus we gotta get our heater tube hooked up. And don't forget about your Y back here. I took mine completely off and blasted it and primed it. So I'm going to make sure that goes in there. You won't get it on without molesting it if you don't do it now. Unless you've got a newer car that has the back piece with the Bakelite that you can unbolt. On these where it's metal, you won't get it on unless you cut that thing up. So, forewarned on that. Let's see. Got everything primed, I believe, that needs to be for putting it in. I know this is going to be somewhat of a challenge. Let's see here if we can see everything. Well, hello, Tom. You going to help us? That's going to go in there like that. Boy, it's going to be... Oh, my boy, it's not the time to sit and ask for petting. this already. I'm gonna have to bend that out till it can get up and snap down in there. It's hard to see. This lip here is hitting this piece. This piece has a notch on it, so once the rocker's up, it can come in. But it's hitting that, and I can't get it up because of that. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, I'm going to have to cut that piece off and then weld it back on. Probably cut it off and that won't be what's really holding it. Alright. That worked. But now we're hitting that gave us a huge boost. But now there's this arch right here from this other support that must be bent down a little bit. We're okay. It looks like this piece could be a little bit longer on the new heater channel because there's where that sat before, but so the whole theory of not getting it in once it's on, but if this piece was a little bit longer, so we'll have to weld that back on there and tack that on there. But we're in there. Now what's got to happen is this part of the body has to come out, this A-pillar. Let's see, this has to go down there. So we can't really move our channel anymore because I got the bolt holes lined up with the floor pan. So we got to try to yank our pillar out of there. Part of the issues. Got something in here holding. Well, just a little bit. It's gonna come. Look at that. Okay. And it's got to go up. Let me get the jack underneath here. Okay, that's hitting there. We got to bring our bottom over just a tad. Our gap, I got to bring it just a little bit. This is a little tighter. I made that member a little bit tighter. This is pretty close to the other side, but I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. Because yeah, even our door is starting to hold good. Because one of the things that keeps the door from sagging is this A-pillar connection. I've got it supported nice there, so that's helping hold that up. That moved. Too much. Take off all the tension. How's that looking? That's looking good. Shutting good. Gap looks good. How does our underneath here? What I'm looking at is our door. This could maybe go in a little bit. So we got a little bit of a space there to match that. This I think got bent in, yeah, that'll come out. What I was talking about, we're coming down pretty flush here, but here, this little bit will come out there when we make that piece. We're sitting tight here. I'll probably weld that and get my A-pillar welded together here. That way our distance stays. And then we can do some tweaking. That'll have to come down back inside there a little bit. We're getting it. Like I told you, we get our door back in place. Now if we weld everything up and unhook our straps, we should be good. That's where we want to weld it. But I'm going to get those tacked, the A and the B pillar, because then I want to let this back down to let the body come down onto the frame and make sure that we're okay there. And I'll probably get a few more bolts started and kind of snug that all up so it's bolted to the chassis. Then we can continue to do our quarters and all that stuff. So I'm gonna let you go for a bit. I'm gonna start welding some of that together and I'll bring you back with some updates, okay? But we made progress. All right, I've done a bunch since the last update. But I went through and my B-pillar. Got to do a little bit of cleaning up of my welds. I've got this welded on. I went and put this. I've got to fix that there when I take the door off, that part of the A-pillar, but I've got it welded out here. And then we cut this off, remember, so we could get around here with the A-pillar. That's all welded on. And I welded this back on. Did a few other tacks here and there. But then I went through and I put the support rail in. Lifted up enough, I figure I've got our rocker on. Our door is shutting pretty good. It sags just a little, but that's okay. We're going to make sure that we're a little bit high. And then once we weld this front up here, that'll support that up. So I put the support rail in there so I could bolt the body down. So the body is bolted at our 2 locations off the shock tower there. I think I've got 4 underneath there. And then I've got the 2 big ones here. Now, just something to check, because I got burned. After I put this on and I was trying to get my bolt started, Thomas, you're knocking our camera, buddy. Normally that's a 10 millimeter M10 bolt that goes up in there. So I'm trying to put my M10 in there and it kind of starts, but it's real tight. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So I'm like, I'll run the tap through it. Try to run a tap. I can't get the tap to go through it. It spins that nut inside the cage nut. Now it's a double for both of them. It's one long one. But so what I had to do, as you can kind of see, I had to cut this damn thing open. Thomas, my boy. I had to cut this open to get at that cage nut in there. And pull it out. I don't know what size bolt it was, because it wasn't an M10 and it was not an M8. M8 went right through it. M10 was too big. So I had to go through and I had to drill it and tap it for an M10. So I've never really had that issue with the cheaper versions of the rockers. I used these classic fabs on the 57 I did a while back, and I don't remember if that was an issue or not. So check them before you put everything together. Make sure that your bolts work in there. Not a huge issue, but a pain in the ass is really what it turned out to be. So I had to cut that open and then fix them and weld it shut. So the next thing I did is I started making some of my patch panels. So I made this piece that's going to go on here. And like compared to the other side, we're a little bit different because remember on the other side, our quarter panel mostly was good and we had to repair our rocker. This one was way off. So what I did is I made this, and I'm going to use these Clio fasteners here. To hold it in place. Because then what we're going to end up doing is we're going to cut this with it on there. And I put one on top here just to pull this tight initially. But we'll take our cutoff wheel and we'll cut that, and we'll have a nice even cut. I'll have to do a little bit of work. There's a little bit of bottle missing here, but once I get this cut and welded on, we'll be able to make a piece and put it on there. Now I also did the back quarter panel. I had to make myself kind of proud of it a little bit. I had to make this, put the little drain hole on it. I didn't, you can buy these obviously. I didn't have any here, so I just went the route of making one. And we're going to do the same thing with this one. Put it on here. And then we'll build a, cut that out. Now, I don't have my bolt hole for the fender. What, depending on the year of your car, the newer cars, they actually have a weld nut inside there that you put a bolt in. This 66, I think 67 does too. I'm not, they actually have a stud out here, but we're gonna put a nut in there. And what I will do is I will put the fender on and I will mark where that's gotta go, and then we'll drill it out and we'll weld a nut in there. So we'll end up using a bolt instead of a nut. It'll make it a little bit easier than trying to figure out what do we have to have. But we'll definitely put the fender on first to mark that location. You know, then I'll have to make our patch panels for the back end of the heater channel here. And then we'll go through and we'll weld our support rail on. I've got to weld the support rail on the inside. And that's going to be along here, and then our spot welds all here. So I've still got to weld this quarter in there. So let's start here, just situated, by cutting this quarter out. I gotta find there's the cutoff wheel. Glasses. We're just gonna go through and we're gonna use it's gonna be our template for cutting this. Okay. And before I take it off too, I'm going to take, where did I put my marker? I drilled my holes for my plug welds here. I'm going to mark these. So when we take that off, we know where we got to clean up our Okay, we got a cut. We can do this. So I know where those are, because then I'm going to take the grinding disc here. And we're going to clean up I'm just looking at this, so yeah, I think we cut far enough to get most of our rust out of there. Let's go through and clean this up. Okay. See how it fits. Well, what the heck? There we go. We'll have to do a little bit of trim in there. Must have got too much of an angle. What I'm going to do is hopefully, yeah, I think I'll be able to. Get our butt weld clamps in here. Get some of these ends. Where are they? So basically, what these do, this will go through here like this, and then this is on the back side, and that'll pinch our metal and it'll keep us flush. So let's see if my arms are long enough to do this. Oh boy. I don't think so. How can we do this? I wonder if I go inside the car. Well, if I'm going in there, and if it works, I better bring more of these with me. Oh boy. I don't know if I can get my hand in there. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Oh, great. How did I do that? What I'll do is I'll tack here, slide him that way. That's how we're going to attempt that. Looks good there. Okay, let's fire the welder up. Now we're going to go through and put tacks in here. So we're nice and flush. Now let's see if we can slide this without losing our... Come on. Oh, I should put the grinder through there a little further. It fell. I don't want to loosen that one. We're pretty good. It's got to push in just a tad. Okay. Yeah, sure, when you want it to fall, it won't. Hopefully I can take a magnet and go down there and get my bars back. I should be able to. Okay. Not too shabby. So now, am I going to be able to reach down there with the dolly and whack them? So now what we want to do, I don't think I'll get over here unfortunately, but we want to put the dolly on the back side of each of them spot welds and then hit the spot weld, and that'll help stretch that spot weld out a little bit because these tend to shrink the metal. Probably have to crawl in here. And that's as far as I'm going to get. There ain't a big enough hole in there. My hand is not small enough. To reach in there. So that kind of sucks. We're just going to have to be extremely careful. That we don't get it too hot to warp it. So now I'm going to go through. I'll probably put another spot weld in between all of these. Hammer as much as I can from the inside. Grind them off a little bit. And I'll keep doing that process till we're done. But I'm nice and cool. And that's what I want. I don't want this to get overly warm, so it don't heat all this up and warp the heck out of it. Down here, we ground each of those off. I need to get, it's my light. So we can put our plug welds in here. And that's just going to be done like this. Like that. So I'll plug all those up. I'll finish welding this along here, in there. And then we'll go jump on the front. Okay, see you in a bit. Got her welded on. Turned out okay. I'm sunk in a little bit. Right here. So I'll have to get in from the inside and try to pop that back out, and then probably, but otherwise it's not bad. But I definitely would like to get it out a little bit further, so I don't have to use as much filler. There's the corner. Let's see side here what it all looks like. So that's the quarter, and we can move on to the back part of it after. But now we're gonna do our front section. Okay, light. If you don't want to stay, that's fine, I guess. Basically gonna do the same thing here. Going to take the cutoff wheel and cut that free. Okay, let's mark our holes here. I don't think we're going to end up putting one there. Well, maybe. We'll see. Okay. Now, trying to break that free. We got to do this front part. Okay. Hose. Should be clean enough. No. Let's do this. I will probably drill and put a plug weld there on each of those spots to help tie that all back together. Let's see how this fits. Trim there to do. That looks good there. There, that'll work. Okay, now we got to figure out how to keep this out. Let's get my smaller screwdriver. Yeah, there we go. That'll help us. Can't get our butt weld clamps on there. Fortunately, this don't have to be as perfect as the quarter panel because it's under the fender. Okay, so basically I'm doing exactly what I did on the back. Same scenario. I'm gonna put a bunch of tacks, grind them off, tack again, do my plug welds, and then for here this will weld up to here, and then I just got to make a little piece of bottom with that lip that comes down. That's how we'll take care of that. So I won't bore you with all the welding. So I'll show you it when it's done. Well, we've got it. Well, not 100%, but I'm going to show you where we're at. I've got all this welded and managed to get from the inside and push this out much further than what it was. So this don't feel too bad now. There's a little bit low there. I might mess with a little bit more. But I've welded our support rail on. Most of it, I've got some spots there I did. I've got that. I will finish these other ones once I get the body off the frame where I can get at them and I can grind this stuff. I've got all these in there. I've got to do a lot of cleaning up of my welds there, but that'll be easier when the body's off. So there's our door. Works awesome. Happy with that. Up front here, this, you can see it, this firewall is pretty straightforward. Once the body's off, all it is a flat piece of steel. So we'll be able to cut that and make a flat patch, weld it back on there. That'll take care of that. I said I haven't completely finished this. I did cut and put that there, but you're just going to make yourself a patch panel to put on there. So I figure I'm not going to show you at all. I've got some work that I'll have to do. All my bolt things through here are pretty rough, so I'm going to have to make some patches. I'll probably just cut that out and weld a new piece in there. That's about all you can do. Might be able to get by just welding that hole shut, but those two aren't gonna. I might not have to take the whole bolt out of there. I might be able to just put a little patch in, because we can get at that then from inside here to seal them up. We put a little patch in there. So what else? Well, body's bolted on completely. So if you've got any questions, I know I didn't completely finish, but I think you get the gist of what it takes to put in the heater channel. Work much easier on a sedan. You don't have all those supports to go around. But it's the same concept. Like I said, I use my frame as my jig. It's the best jig out there for doing it, because that's where it's going to go when it's done. So it seems scary cutting it all apart. And your doors, you got basically two halves of the car. But if you take your time and with it sitting on there, it's pretty straightforward. Rust is always 100 times worse than what it looks. Once you start cutting and patching like we did on that side, you see where it is. That one worked out okay to patch what we had, but this was a much better repair doing the whole thing. But so I know a lot of guys will, what does it cost to change the heater channel? All depends on the car. There's always more than the heater channel that needs to be repaired, because usually everything that bolts or welds to the heater channel is usually gone too. So you've got a lot of other patching, but it's very labor intensive. So I'll shut up. But I hope you liked the video. Ask any questions you have. Willing to help everybody out as much as I can. Please subscribe to the channel. Helps me out big time. I've got a few more videos. I do have a video of that side. A video putting a new skin on over there we had to do. I've got some videos that'll be coming out on the bus here. I just did the lower rocker there. Got to finish up the quarters and the B-pillar. But a lot of stuff. I'm starting to get back into the welding part of the restorations again. So I'll try to get more stuff out there. So once again, thanks guys. Subscribe. Take care. Talk to you next time.